Welcome to the Beer Can Cold Podcast with your hosts Will Merritt and JG Van Gran, a podcast where the suction line is always beer can cold. Take it away, boys.
Thanks, Dougie. Boy, oh boy.
Dougie.
It's been a week and a half, and we didn't do this last week, and it made it worse. I promise you, to pull a studio back together in 10 minutes is not fun. Yep. So welcome back, everybody. We're coming to you live from my garage in Benson, North Carolina, and I believe you guys said, Will, you're on the road today in Ocean Isle.
Yeah, we're at Ocean Isle Beach, North Carolina. So
That
it
is awesome.
The annual guys beach trip, courtesy of my buddy here, Steve Otwell. So we're
That's
at his
awesome.
house. I'm the first one down. Came down early just for the podcast.
Let's go.
All the other recluses, the delinquents, are coming down tomorrow.
Oh, so the fun starts early. I got it.
Yep.
So we missed last week, and we're going to blame it. I decided we're blaming it on the R-454B
Good one to blame.
shortage. It's a good one to blame. I do need to touch on that a little bit. I just want to give some updates on things I know today, but that's not really what we're going to talk about today. So I'll let you introduce Steve. Wait, I'm sorry. I forgot. There it is.
Well, we're on bourbon since we're at the beach tonight. So there we go.
I'll be doing bourbon shortly. I've started with beer.
You
Well,
said
and
you
Steve-
weren't. You said you were not touching bourbon.
Well, I'll get there. I just want to get a nice base in with cold beer first.
Yeah, we're probably going to go to a nice.
I try to, unlike you, I try to limit my bourbon for dark time, for nighttime, not daylight.
So
Things
Steve-
go bad. I do bourbon when the sun's still up.
Steve, so I want to tease this a little bit, and we'll get you to introduce yourself in a minute, but I have a beer glass here I have to show you, and I've talked to Will, and he told me a little bit about you. So and I don't know if you're going to be able to read it, but it says,
Oh yeah, that's my boy.
I believe in Bigfoot
Daddy.
and beer. So today is going to be a fun one because I have a lot of opinions on things you want to talk about, so I think it's going to be a great day.
Well,
So introduce yourself, Steve.
Yeah, thanks, JG. Steven Otwell. I've been buddies with Will since I was 19 or 20 in college.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, next door neighbors at our townhouse at UNC Charlotte. I've been friends ever since.
A-Town.
Yep. Originally from Greensboro, went to UNC Charlotte. I live in Waxhaw outside Charlotte now, and we've got a place down here at Ocean Isle. And as Will said, we've got an annual boys trip where all the guys come down, and we're now in our early 50s, but we act like we're in our early 20s for about 3 or 4 days, and then we go home and recuperate.
Yep.
That's awesome.
But
That is well done.
Here's a couple anecdotal interjections here. Steve's dad and my mom went to college together at Guilford College in Greensboro.
Okay.
And we did not know that until we met in college. So it turns out Ron and my mom, she's passed away now, Kay, went to college together. So they were a couple of years apart, but they knew each other. And so small world.
Well, I'll tell you how small it is. We're playing so Steve, I coach a girls' high school rugby team. We're playing in the state semifinals this Saturday at Guilford College. My daughter's longtime boyfriend of, I think, 3 years now. They grew up together, but just started dating 3 years ago. He's going to play rugby at UNC Charlotte. And Will, big news. I want to brag on the podcast for a minute. My daughter just accepted her D1A scholarship. She's going to play rugby at Queen's University in Charlotte. So The Navy thing didn't quite work out, but we're excited about Queen's. So I get to drive and watch her play, and it's going to be quite exciting.
Well, you got a place to stay.
Yes, I know that. And so many podcast things will be happening.
Well, I showed the picture you sent at poker last Thursday night. I told you my buddy Mike Green, his son plays at Louisville and went to Queens and left. So they were in the championship stuff and lost to NC State. So I did not hear who won. NC State played UNC Charlotte for the national championship. Who won?
And so the NC State won that one.
Okay.
So what's really unique about the rugby circles right now, North Carolina had a team in the top 3 in each one of the divisions. And so And that sounds like we're tooting our own horn, but that's from like, I've been involved for about 12, 13 years now. That's us building these kids up from a young age. And so
Nice.
NC State won theirs, UNC Wilmington won theirs. Belmont Abbey came in fourth. Queens came in fourth, I think, something like that. And then the girls' side, I think Queens won the whole thing. So there was North Carolina representation all the way through the ranks. Really, really good.
Awesome. Like I said, small world.
Yes,
All
very,
good.
very small work. So sorry, Steve, we interrupted you. We do squirrel here a lot.
It's a lot of swirling. So yeah, random.
No worries.
Other
I
direction.
think this is my first podcast, so I do tons of webinars and stuff like that for my corporate job, but this is the first one I think I've been part of.
So corporate job, tell us about it.
Yeah, I'm with a firm. I'm on the something that has nothing to do with HVAC. I'm in with a SaaS-based software company. I lead sales there for a division line. We do global bank connectivity, global cash solutions for really big corporations. So I sell to like the Fortune 100 and Fortune 500. I have lots of meetings with CFOs and so forth on how do they manage the complexity and the risk market around cash and complexities in the open market. So, and I'm in sales. I'm at the heart of a sales guy, but also kind of lead sales teams and oversee some of the sales folks and working with customers on how do they utilize and spend money on software to help kind of solve some of the complexities they have in the global markets around that.
That's very interesting because I have an uncle that does exactly, I think, that for the airline industry.
Yeah.
Also in the financial piece of it, I'm trying to think who he's with now, and it'll come to me in a second. But it's a world that always fascinated me. Is it air cargo? Maybe. I don't know, but anyway, it's one of those big financial institutions that also they help with transactions at airports, right? As freight comes through, and so also a very, very interesting conversation.
Cool, good.
So, if I could indulge for just a minute, Will, before we jump into the fun stuff that you told me Steve is all about, I think we need to first discuss this myth called R-454B. And what in the world is going on, and how in the world does manufacturers not see these things coming, and why do they always put us in this state of hurt? It's insane. So before I start, I have to do a big retraction, as I had Wyatt in my office. So on the last podcast, I made a joke. And it was just a joke, folks, where my friend Will was slipping a certain koozie over a beer can, and I said, be careful, it could start leaking.
Totally accidental. Lisa, my wife, brought me a beer, and she just happened to grab a koozie, and it was a CE koozie, which is Carrier Enterprise. I said, oh, we'll give them a plug, and we'll show it. And then you made a little bit of a slanted remark, and so we'll leave it at that.
That remark comes from years ago when my dad was buying Ford pickup trucks and tractors, and the salesman walked out in a white shirt and a black tie that said Ford on it. My dad said, be careful, you're going to get oil on that shirt because that logo leaks. So I've always just kind of kept that one in my pocket. But no, Carrier coils doesn't look any more than any other coil. So there you go, Wyatt. I promised I'd say it. I did. But this 454 thing is a mess, and let me explain why for our people that's not really in the industry. The government stepped in and made us switch to another refrigerant from R410A. So if in our lifetime it was R22, then we went to R410A, and now we're in R454B, or some manufacturers decided to stay with R32. R32 is a very well-known refrigerant used overseas. Yeah. And so it was the guys that's got to have a pretty big footprint on the outside of the country decided to stay with R32. And so what that has meant now is that we're in this thing where these refrigerants are slightly flammable. So there's things that's being done to equipment that's increasing prices yet again.
Yeah.
And then we have to get the guy certified again and everything on this refrigerant. And the industry has had a heads up about this for a long time. They knew this was coming. And surprise, surprise, it started breaking about a month ago that, oh, by the way, you need to be buying jugs of 454 if you can find it. And I think about a month ago, I think we were buying it for $134, $180 a jug, roughly. Yep. 2 weeks later, I paid $1,900 a jug, and I was only allowed to buy 2. And that was a gut shot. And then you start realizing that we have to put in all this equipment throughout the summer, and we need 454 because if the line set is longer than 25 feet, you have to add some refrigerant in. And then there's talks that we may not have the refrigerant to do so. So that just skyrocketed everything. And then on top of that, the equipment started having issues because now guys are, how do we manufacture if we don't have refrigerant? So after more digging, come to find out it's not necessarily that there is a shortage of refrigerant. There's a shortage of the canisters to put the refrigerant in, which I find baffling because R-32 has been shipping in those same canisters for a long time, which brings me to my conspiracy theory part, and this is my opinion, and it's like cowboy hats, every a-hole has one, and I'm allowed to say my opinion in this country, that's why I moved here. I think there's 2 or 3 guys at the top that's holding it, and they are fluctuating pricing, and that's just my opinion. But tariffs had some of a role to play in this, but it didn't have a role to play in the shortage. And so I'm sitting here quite steaming as a contractor that I can't find refrigerant, and I don't know what my summer is going to look like. Luckily, we have a great relationship with another brand that uses the R-32, and we've been putting that in. But it just baffles my mind that this is always seems to be what happens, and it's not fair.
Yeah.
It's not fair. So to my knowledge, 18-week lead time now on orders for refrigerant, and if you can find them. And then what is now happening with distributors, and I'm not going to say names because I think this is dirty pool as well. They're just pulling in, and they'll only sell to you if you sell their equipment and sign up as a certain dealer. And that I understand. But then those distributors also are going around to people that's not currently buying from them, holding the carrot out saying, well, if you buy from me now and you sign up as this dealer and sign this contract, I'll sell you refrigerant. So there's just a lot of shady stuff going on at the moment. So I don't know. I just wanted to kind of put the knowledge out there of what I know to be true so that we do use this podcast to get a little bit of that knowledge out there. But that's all I know at the moment. I know it's 18-week lead time on refrigerant. It's hard to find. If you can find it, it's very expensive. Prices are ranging from $550 a jug to $1,900 a jug, depending. And, where's these price gouging laws and all this other stuff? I don't know. But that's where we are. That's what I know. Have you heard anything?
I mentioned what you told me a couple of weeks ago, JG, about paying $1,800 or whatever for a jug, and to one of another contractor client of ours, and they were like, "No, we're not paying anything close to that. More like the 180 or something like that." And again, they're being limited on how much they can buy. You know, half a skid maybe type of thing. And one of the people there told me that she said, from what we're understanding, the typical system takes a little more refrigerant. Yeah. Than the R-410A systems did. So I don't know, but it's just, it's what we've gone through, the 10 SEER to 13 SEER transition, the R-22 to, R-410A transition. It's always a cluster.
Yeah. Enough sad stuff. I want to laugh. I don't want to have a good time. So enough of these daggone refrigerant companies.
So let's segue in this to Steve here, to Steven. So you're working with companies that do business globally. So what are they seeing going on with what's happening in the world right now? We got tariffs, we got uncertainty in the markets. I mean, it's everybody's like, the sky is falling. I'm like, everything's going to be okay, but we got to have some time. So, I mean, what are you seeing on your side of things with people you're dealing with, Steve?
So we sell to the Fortune 100, Fortune 500, Fortune 2000 to a degree. And I think what we're seeing is it's market segmented. We're selling software that can be $500,000, $1 million from an annual perspective, which is pretty typical for our industry. But I am hearing from some of the sales reps that there's some uncertainty depending on the vertical and the customer base that the customer resides in, if they're ready to kind of make that capital expenditure yet. So a lot of them are just, there's pieces where there's uncertainty in the market and they're not quite sure where their cash flow is going to be, what the market's going to dictate, and they're hesitant to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And so, and you're seeing that in some degree where there's some downside on the sales. On the flip side, we also sell to private equity firms. We sell to big investment firms who love volatility in the market. That's how they make money. They're, of course, a stagnant market is not what they want, and they're spending money right now. But for the most part, I think a lot of this stuff, this doesn't feel much different to me than COVID. And COVID, I think a lot of customers on the corporate side got caught off guard in COVID, and they were panicking because the sky was falling. At least they thought it was in COVID, and they didn't have disaster recovery processes in place. Yeah. I think a lot of the big corporate markets, the big corporate customers, learned from that and said we've got to make sure that we need to be able to put a business plan in place to help with when there's uncertainty in the market. And I think COVID helped with that a lot. Yeah. I mean, I don't think we're reducing our numbers. I think most customers are still spending. I think again, some uncertainty is actually good for our side of the business because what we sell helps curve uncertainty and risk inside the application. Yeah. But still, I think if it's a firm that is doing a significant business where it's inbound and they're international and they feel like consumer goods are coming in, then there is some hesitancy. I don't think we're seeing much of a decline our side on the revenue, though.
We're doing really well. I have to say that it's. We are doing much better than last year, but I do see people taking a little longer to make a decision, and so forth. But the money is still being spent, and heating and air conditioning systems are still being put in. My concern is this, with a slant to our industry, is when are we going to reach that saturation point where it's just too damn expensive, right? So, Steve, from our side, a regular heating and air system has gone, I don't know, up 60-70% in the last 5 years.
$9,000 was a system a few years ago.
High efficiency system.
Yes. Yeah. And now nothing's below $12,000.
No. And you start putting ductwork, it's 18 to 20,000.
Well, I did ductwork in my house. I've said this before. I did both systems in the last 3 years, and I did ductwork on both up and down because I had to have it. And we were over $20,000 on both systems. I mean, that's a lot of money.
Now, what I'm just going to do a little generation shaming here, but what's helping us is this generation that's kind of spending the money right now. It's a monthly payment, right? It's $200 a month. I don't care what it is. Yep. And so that's how we're doing well. And we're in a little bit more of an affluent area. So I do recognize that fact, but it's insane to me. And what's concerning to me is that when are we going to reach that point? Because here's the thing, during COVID, copper, steel, all that stuff went way up, right? After COVID, it came down some. Nobody dropped prices.
Oh, of course. Well, that's never going to happen. And
right.
It's just the nature of the beast with it. We're gonna realize those internal gains.
Yeah.
We're gonna drop prices now. No.
So, Steve, so I hear you guys you're talking a little bit more software type of related. So the tariffs and stuff doesn't really affect you guys, right?
From what we do, no, not on our side. But the way it would affect does it affect our customers and their ability to spend capital because of the risks in the market? Right. I mean, at the end of the day, uncertainty tightens up budgets, right? Yep. Mm-hmm. It just does. And we sell to the CFO and the CIO of corporations, and you would know the name of most of our company, like Amazon or whoever's going to run the application.
Sure.
So it's uncertainty in the market hurts it, but I mean I don't think we've seen a big a big push against any of the capital expenditures right now. I mean, we're not missing our numbers from what I can tell. So it's so far I think we're okay. The more that they're able to predict and get rid of some of this risk, so that the businesses know where they can spend and how they can manage their capital, it will help our side a little bit, I think.
Right. I do think it's short-term pain for long-term gain, though.
Yes,
I am a believer in that, and I think that's going to be good in the long run. But boy, it seems like the summer is going to be a little painful.
Well, I mean, talking to just, I've tried to put my finger on the pulse all the time between distribution and contractors. And, I've been hearing a lot of good things, that a lot of contractors are busy.
Yeah, we're busy.
You said, you think some people are waiting. I've heard the converse of that some people are going, hey, I'm going to go ahead and replace now, a la the COVID years. Like, hey, they're thinking that stuff's going to go up, which it is. I talked to a rep from a distributor day before yesterday, and he said, we just got an 8 to 10% price increase. Second one this year, and so ouch. I don't know if you have, JG, but when one comes, they all come. But I think consumers are going like, hey, if it's not going to make it through the summer, let's do it now. Which is very rare, Steve, in our business, that consumers react or go proactive and replace it. I'm an aberration because I've been in the industry forever, but most consumers are going to wait till that thing breaks, whether it's July, June, August, whatever, and then it's a panic attack, and let's go get it replaced. Some are doing it now, which I think
the industry did a good job this time. What they didn't do against during the 410A changeover from R22 is they are doing a better job of informing the homeowners and the consumer, the end consumer, right? And so our salespeople are walking into conversations that go, oh, we understand this refrigerant is either phased out or this one is new or whatever it might be. I'm sorry, guys. I thought I turned that off. So it's like there is a little bit of that going on. I think where I see more hesitation is the homeowners that had wanted to buy the biggest, the best, and now they're like, maybe we'll downgrade a little bit, but we are seeming to do pretty good with big commercial contracts. That seems to be a good thing for us at the moment. So we're doing okay. I'm not complaining whatsoever. I'm just saying I think that there might be stormier seas ahead.
Well, I was listening to the radio coming down to the beach today, and they're having it was conservative talk radio, shocker, and they were discussing. It was a manufacturing company the guy worked for, and he said, we're dealing with some pretty big outfits of what we do. I never heard what their company or business was, but he says we source raw materials. He was saying from Canada, from Mexico, he said Poland. Yeah. And he goes, the whole thing is, they're trying to look at cost and figures and go, hey, am I still going to get them from these and have to pay additional money on these tariffs? Or am I going to look to shift all this and get it from another supplier, which could be, inside the United States? But then there's some things he alluded to that like these raw materials we can't get here. So, and again, that's another uncertainty thing, which, most corporations, they're going to drive the price up, which we heard a couple of weeks ago. Honeywell on the refrigerant side put a 42% surcharge. And I heard saying that they may back some of that off if things change, but we got the whole cylinder issue, some of the chemicals have to come in, via container and via ship that way to actually produce R-454B. And so, it's like you said, uncertainty. And they're not going to hurt themselves if, these large corporations, if possible. And, it's going to trickle down to the distributors, and then trickle down to the contractor, and then trickle down to me, you, all of us, the end user, the homeowner,
right,
or the business.
So speaking of uncertainty, Steve,
here's what we're looking for.
I am a fellow Bigfoot enthusiast. Not a lot of people know this, but I was born in Africa, and I know nothing is ever what it seems. So I would love to get your point of view on this.
Well, that's a can of worms, JG.
Well, why not?
I don't think I've ever seen a pivot from tariff HVAC systems to Sasquatch. This has got to be
we can sit here and be unhappy
This
about
is a
this,
weird
or we can talk about the fun stuff.
If someone's listening to this, they'll probably find this a little bit more interesting. Sorry, guys, but you can only take them to HVAC and tariff talk.
Well, HVAC's always so sexy. Dude.
I'm not a conspiracy guy. Since I was a little kid.
What? Yes, you are.
I like following it, but I was a little kid. I remember, and I think it came out in like 76 or 72, 73, when the Patterson Gimlin film was shown. And I remember being like a 6-year-old, 7-year-old kid, and I'm watching this. Can you cuss on here?
Yeah,
sure.
I watched the monster walk across the screen on national news, which is, if you're not familiar with it, right? The Patterson Gimlin film is the
I know.
It was filmed by a couple of guys going out and trying to find that back in the late 70s, who had rumors of a Bigfoot sighting in Northern California, I think is where it was. But it was a pretty profound effect on me as a kid. I'm like, wait, this is not how this shit is real. Now, whether that thing is that video is predominant or not, or has validity to it, has been questioned many, many times. I think there's been so much analysis around it. So, and I kind of grew up right. I lived away, but we got to the point where I'm kind of known in my group. JG is the Bigfoot guy. You know how many friends of mine that they're out somewhere and they find a Bigfoot T-shirt and they send it to me. I probably got,
that's awesome.
I don't know, at least a dozen Bigfoot T-shirts sitting in my closet. I've even got, if you remember the Sky Mall when you're on the plane, that Bigfoot statue that's actually sits by my pool back home.
Yep.
So there's a big Sasquatch thing, and I don't know. I'm fascinated. I was fascinated as a kid by it. I'm still kind of fascinated a little bit too as I grew up.
Yeah.
I would love to see one. Whether they're there or not, I don't know. I also think with the expansion of podcasts and what's happened is that people can now find nuances of these little weird things they're into and just dive into the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And obviously there's Bigfoot, but then there's the whole UFO piece, which you now have government whistleblowers and congressional testimony talking about the government and government contractors, specifically Lockheed Martin, are in possession of alien craft. We have bodies, and it was so weird, man. Last year, they actually had a whistleblower, David Grush, was on congressional testimony.
Yep.
Saying, he held up a folder and said, I have documentation right here telling you where the bodies are and where the crafts are under perjury. And it's like, no one gives a shit. This guy just said, we got 17 ships and we got alien bodies. I was like, everybody's like, okay. And to me, it's the biggest question in the world, right?
Well, and the media is suppressing it.
You're not into religion and what is reality and what is life, and I just don't see how. To me, I don't know, and I think I've kind of got a podcast. I actually got into Joe Rogan because he was into this subject quite a bit. I didn't really care about Joe Rogan. Never listened to podcasts in my life. The first time I listened to Rogan, he had David Fravor on. I don't know if he's the guy that actually runs Top Gun, and he's the most decorated Navy pilot. Okay. And he chased a UFO for like 20 minutes and sat here told Rogan for 2 hours about what this thing did. And I'm listening to this and I'm like, why is everyone in the world not talking? Why is this not the most important topic? So anyway, I find it interesting, and it's a fascinating subject to have fun with. I'm in my 50s. I would love to have some concrete evidence, because everything's blurry as shit, right? The Bigfoot pictures are blurry. Right. The UFO photos, I think the government has probably got a lot of stuff that they're not showing. I don't know. I would just love to see what is actually out there.
Well, I think the big question out there, Steve, is, have you had an encounter that we don't know about?
No, nothing. Never.
All right. So I will tell you why it's not mainstream. is because mainstream media decided it won't be.
Yeah.
That's why. And the great unwashed is not listening, and they're sheeple. So I'm with you. I'm sorry. I'm going to come out and I'm going to lose friends over this. I get it, but I believe. I believe, man.
100%.
And I'll tell you how much fun I had with it. There was a show called Finding Bigfoot, and I'm sure you watched it, Steve. And it was a bit of a laugh.
With Bobo, the big
with
dude.
Bobo.
Yeah.
when my middle son was 6, and by the way, he is as big as Sasquatch now. He is a massive human. Okay. He is a big, strong kid. But we used to, that was our show. That was our bonding thing, right? And we just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And we would go visit his grandparents that lived in a wooded area in Virginia. And I would catch him wanting to watch the show and talking about it. And at night I would sneak out and like do the howling and the stuff. And he would
tree
just
knocks and all that.
All that stuff. And one night I was out there being funny, doing all that. And no kidding, something hollered back. And I don't know if it was another person or what it was, but I was good enough impressed that I went back inside and said, I will never be doing this type of thing again. It was probably just a neighbor. I don't care, but it was good enough to put some fear of God in me. But I believe it's real because there's too much, there's too much stuff out there about it. So I have to ask, what about the Roularou, the Mothman from West Virginia, all that stuff?
Yeah, I know what you're referring to. I've read the Mothman Chronicles.
The movie was greght. Richard Gere.
Yeah, it was a scary ass movie, and there's actually a great book you ought to read about it. I've read that. I've followed the Skinwalker Ranch stuff. I was really into that kind of stuff. Reading that's the, if you want to, that's the craziest book I've ever read is Skinwalker Ranch. If you ever want to read that, that's by by George Knapp, who's kind of the head. He's a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist who does I think he's got a show on Netflix, but he wrote that book. And I don't know if you've ever heard about Skinwalker Ranch.
Elaborate a little bit. I know a little bit, but I don't know enough.
So Skinwalker Ranch is there's a ranch in northern Utah that was owned by ranchers, and they say this is crazy shit, but they say it's the most paranormal, weirdest place on the planet. The rancher saw like werewolves. He saw orbs and UFOs all the time. They talk about in the book that they talked about like Bigfoot's walking through portals and stuff. And it's completely, and it got bought. It got sold to Joe Bigelow. Joe Bigelow, what are the guy's name? Bigelow, who's now part of he was part of the defense contractor. So Harry Reid, the U.S. senator, gave them $20 million to help investigate it. And the U.S. government actually bought the Skywalker Ranch and owned it for years to help with this paranormal kind of investigation going into it.
Suppress.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of bonker stuff going on out there. But I mean, my thought is I have no idea. I've never seen anything. I'd love to see some stuff. But there's just so much happening, and it's so much being reported that something's got to be going on out there. Right. There's a section on Reddit where there's a UFO section on Reddit where there's all kinds of people on there, right? They're posting shit they see. There's also a section on Reddit where it's commercial airline pilots are uploading videos almost on a daily basis of shit they're seeing in the sky.
Yeah,
and an airline pilot for American Airlines knows what a satellite is. He knows what a satellite's not. He knows what another plane is. And there's so much crazy stuff going on. Like some of the pilots were talking about that even on the commercial airlines, that there's certain things that the pilots will say over the intercom that the flight attendants know what that means. And it means to look out a window and there's a craft out there to go look at. All this kind of crazy shit going on. There's so much stuff going on. And then then you had the whole drone thing going on in New Jersey that was fascinating. We still don't know what the that was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, but what I came back to what I got really interested when there were congressional hearings on this, and you've got guys that were decorated intelligence and Navy officers under oath saying what they saw and what the government is doing. And to me, and I'll say, I was listening yesterday, and they're talking about they're releasing all the JFK files, and the CIA is doing all this stuff. I would just love to say, here's what we got, guys, and release the whole damn thing. I think we lost JG, Will.
I'm still here. I don't know. I don't want my camera quit though. Give me 1 second. You guys keep going. I'll figure it out.
No worries. But I'll tell you this. I can't remember if I told you, Steve, when I was in Europe last year on the D-Day tour, one of the guys with us, and we got to know everybody. It was, 30 people, and we were together for 2 weeks. And he was an American Airlines pilot. Really cool guy. I got to hang out with his son. His son was a airborne, 82nd Airborne guy. And he said, yeah, he goes, we were walking one night back from dinner. He goes, yeah, Will, I saw some shit that didn't add up. And it was interesting. He was pretty tight-lipped about it. He was a nice guy. And he goes, yeah, I saw some stuff a lot. He's still a pilot. I told him, I said, man, I know you. I never forget a face. I said, I've seen you walking out of the cabin, the cockpit. And he was telling me his routes he flew. But he said, man,
he's a pilot for American?
Yeah, he's a pilot for American. He goes, man, I've seen some stuff that doesn't add up. And we were walking back from dinner one night, one of the last nights we were there. I think we were in Germany. And but yeah, it's just too much stuff out there for it not to be something going on. It may not be exactly what we think it is, but there's something out there. And I'm a believer of this. As vast as the universe is, we can't, as intelligent human beings, think that we're the only intelligent species, life form out there as vast as our universe is. I mean, come on.
Yeah, there's a guy, Jacques Farreau. He's been on Rogan several times. He's got a lot of books out there. Passport to Magnolia into the Cosmos. Really, he's a French dude. And the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I don't know if you remember that. Remember the French scientist? Spielberg based it off this guy. He's a data analyst. He's wrote tons of books. I don't know if it's something's going on. I don't know that we know what reality is, to be honest with you. And a lot of them are thinking that some of this shit is interdimensional. Some of it could be they're living here on our planet and they're time travelers. There's a lot of stuff going on that a lot of this shit's coming out of the ocean. That guy, David Fravor, talked about when he was chasing that thing. It was a Tic Tacs UFO that he chased for 20 minutes. It's the most captivating thing you'll ever listen to. If you want to listen to, and I'll talk about Bob Lazar in a second, but he chased this. He said it's about 20 feet long. And look, there's a white Tic Tac.
Yep.
And it was about 100 miles off the shore of San Diego, where his aircraft carrier was.
Mm-hmm.
He followed it down, and it was zipping all over the place. It hovered like 10, 20 feet above the Pacific Ocean, and he said something 200 to 300 yards large came up from the bottom of the ocean, and you can see he said there was no white caps at all. Something was underneath the water, and then the damn thing dove in the water and then dove up. So something was, I don't know, man. I listen to this stuff and it sounds fascinating.
Well, we don't know what's at the bottom of the oceans. We can't chart that.
So I read the other day. No shit. 75% of the oceans has never been discovered.
Exactly.
75% of it. I'm telling you, dude. The Kraken is real. That whole Pirates of the Caribbean shit was real.
Hell yeah.
Well, the Loch Ness is not in the ocean water. that's in the freshwater. But
no,
yes.
but it's just that, right? And this goes back to biblical times. You want to start getting into the conversation of Nephilims, all that stuff.
Those are the giants, I think.
The giants, right? Yeah. And how they were, here on Earth, walking around between humans, and one of the reasons there was a big fallout is because they started, having relations with humans, and these half men or half giants were starting to be born. I'm telling you, it's endless for me. Like, I get down these rabbit holes, and I'll keep digging and digging. And then I remember I have a life. I have to get back to life.
Oh,
but I'm like you. It fascinates me, man. And it's not that I believe it or don't believe it. It's the digging for it that really gets me. And then there's a lot of things out there that I just don't think ever. There's just too much. There's too much.
What we know now does not add up.
It's too much credible people. You can look at some whack job and say, okay, that guy's fucked up. I know what he's talking about. But when these guys are doing congressional testimonies in front of Congress and talking about this, and literally, I mean, David Gross held up a folder and like I've got the location, the addresses of where the ships are. Who's not grabbing that and saying, "Take me to it. I want to go see this shit right now." And then you know, and I don't, and everyone's like, "Okay, fine," but Trump did a mean tweet today, so let's
go jump on that. Which, by the way, you mentioned Trump. I have this theory too that every time a president is elected, man, they take him in this room and there's like 4 guys with suits, and they sit him down for like 12 hours and they tell him all the shit that we all wish we knew, and then he walks out of there a changed man. And I tell you, I'm
can't tell anybody about it.
Well,
can't tell anybody, right?
The stuff I've read is different, and that they say there's a lot of shit out there that because presidents are 4-year terms and they don't tell them a lot of the shit because it's so. The Pentagon cannot pass an audit, right? There's so much money flowing through that thing. Where's it going? A lot of it, well, most of it's going to Patterson and to Lockheed Martin and to the other large defense contractors. So I would love them to tell Trump, and if anyone's going to tell anybody, it would be Trump.
Yeah.
I don't know what Trump knows and doesn't know.
Well, careful. We don't want to knock at the door this weekend.
Well, I was going to say,
11 knock at the door at 3 a.m.
11 episodes without any issues, and my camera dies in the middle of a podcast when we're talking about this stuff. I mean,
hey, it's real. It's what happens on the Beer Can Cold podcast. Yeah, real shit.
No, but I'm with you, and you know, I think there's just too much evidence out there to just say it's not real, it's not worth it. I do find that it is a certain group of people that gravitate towards this thing, and it's normally the people I like to have a conversation with because it's normally people that think things through and don't just believe everything right at sight. 2 of my kids thinks me and my middle son are crazy, but you know, we'll go out there and look for Bigfoot every once in a while. And I'm telling you, man, if you grew up in the African wild and the bush and you've seen it, these things don't. I know there is something out there that leaves very big footprints. There's got to be.
Yeah, there's too much of the, there's parts of the world that are, just not explored.
I mean, how was the pyramids built? How was the pyramids truly built?
I mean, they had something come out recently about that. I can't remember. I saw it recently. I mean, there's no way. I mean, that manual labor did all that. They're like doing stuff below ground now, like seismographs or whatever it is. And I'm off what I'm saying there. Somebody correct me.
Yeah, they need to go out there and blow that pyramid up and then dig about 50 feet down and find out what's below that thing.
No, there's stuff way below it, but I mean,
the Egyptians never allow it. But something. I guess I'm optimistically skeptic, right? There's too much pointing that something's going on, and we just it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that some people do know what it is. And some people aren't telling them. The other, if you haven't heard of Bob Lazar, if you know that is JG.
It sounds familiar, but I'm not sure.
So if you want to be fascinated, listen to Rogan. I don't know if you listen to Joe Rogan or not.
I do.
But listen to him with Bob Lazar.
Okay.
There's that. Jimmy Corbell did a documentary on Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar is the guy. He came out in the '80s who said that he worked at Area 51.
Yep.
And he was tasked. He was a propulsion scientist.
Mm-hmm.
And basically he said that he was brought in to reverse engineer a craft that was being held at Area 51.
Yeah.
And he spent 2 hours with Rogan talking about it. And there's lots of documentaries. He's been telling the same story forever. And the guy is really smart. Whether he's lying or not, I don't know. But the other side is, why would he bring this up? But he's just very detailed on what was going on out there, right? How they segment different parts of the craft and the different scientists trying to analyze this thing. Basically, his story was, we've got these things and we don't know what to do with them. Even Grush, who was on the congressional testimony, said that the first craft we received was given to us by Mussolini from Italy in the 30s or 40s.
Huh.
The Italians didn't know what to do with it, so they gave it to the Americans. It was pulled over here. I don't know, man. It's crazy.
Well, maybe with the AI, I mean, some of the stuff's probably beyond the the capabilities of scientists now. So maybe AI is going to figure this thing out.
Okay, so I dove into this thing the other day. So a podcast is coming about things that you can do with ChatGPT and a heating and air company. Because I'm doing things.
I know you said that on the last episode.
Yep. So I actually have gone about 180 degrees more since that podcast. There's things I'm figuring out how to do that's really cool. But with that said, I read the other day that they said AI is actually in trouble if it's truly learning from the public. Because they said that they've been tracking the things that people are asking AI, and AI learns as it goes. And they said that that there's so much dumb stuff being asked that they actually feel like within the next 10 years AI will regress.
You'd be dumber.
Be dumber.
That may not be a bad thing.
It may be, but I just thought it was funny. I think, because the things that I get it to do is actually quite awesome. Like I'm going to tell you that it saves me hours a day.
Yeah,
I'm just really.
The father of AI was on 60 Minutes last week, and he said AI could eliminate disease in the next 10 to 20 years.
Yeah. Did Musk say something like that today, where he said that surgeons will be replaced by robots that's more accurate with in a very short amount of time?
I mean, that should be a no-brainer, right? A robot, you can technically, there's no glitch of the hand, there's nothing.
Yep. There's no human aspect. Yep. Well, I think this has been fun. We've delved into a lot of topics here.
Yeah, I'm wondering what I want to name this one. 454 to Bigfoot in 20 minutes.
Yeah, the full gamut, the full Monty. we could go into ghosts too if we want to do ghosts while we're here.
I don't find the ghosts quite as interesting, to be honest with you.
No, because actually, that's a little bit more, in my opinion. Again, it's like cowboy hats. It's a little bit more well known because people do understand that there's like an afterlife, there's things, right, and so forth. But I think this whole shifting it to UFO and Bigfoots is a whole different step. It's a whole different thing. But I don't know. I'm optimistic. I think, to your point, we had a big folder the other day, and people were like, I have this data. At some point, the public is going to start waking up, and I do think people are waking up to a lot of facts, right? And people are waking up to the way things are really are. And I think this stuff's going to come out more and more. I have to believe that.
Yeah. Well, the general public is not as naive as they make us to, appear us to be or believe us to be, whatever.
I do believe that's a by state statement, though.
Yeah.
The first real conspiracy I saw that I figured out for myself. I'm fairly on the road, right? I'm fairly middle. I'm probably lean certainly more right than I do left. But one thing that changed for me, growing up, I watched mainstream. I don't want to get on too far into this, but the mainstream media. But the biggest turning point for me was following the 2020 election, where no one covered any of this. Whatever you believe about laptop thing, the fact that no one covered it and just blew it up. At that point, I started scratching and I never thought about it, right? I never thought, wow, these guys are, everything's on one camp. And so I started seeing that. I'm like, well, this doesn't make sense. Why would they not talk? I mean, my wife, Democrat, why is no one talking about this? I don't understand it. I don't understand it either. It doesn't make sense. Why would they not talk about this? And the more you start looking into it, and then and now you've got the news has the phrase of the day, whether it's constitutional crisis, and everyone says the same thing the same day. I don't know how that's being fed everywhere. The whole thing's just weird. So it's hard just to trust anything anymore, to be honest with you.
Well, I'll tell you where I was. So pre-COVID, mid-COVID, I started getting into the conspiracy stuff pretty deep, and it was getting to a point where it was unhealthy. I was so obsessed with getting into that stuff. I'm talking, Steven, and you may know some of the stuff, Will, you may know too, but I got into bloodline families and who's really running the world. And I got deep. I got really deep, and it started
Steve
affecting
Mason, One World. I mean, come on, yeah, that's good.
and,
yeah.
depopulation, all that stuff.
I don't doubt that
Just
one bit.
my advice is enjoy your life and your family and try to not
So I did.
download that stuff. The saying is take the red pill, but don't take the whole damn bottle.
Yes. So I did. I somewhat spiraled out of control, and it was affecting my emotional state because I was so anxious all the time. So I got out of it. I completely stepped back.
To me, that it's unhealthy, and it's the other side of the coin of the people who have Trump derangement syndrome, right? And
that's right.
All they do is think about that. You got to find a middle ground on this to be healthy.
Yeah, I find myself.
It's fun to talk about this shit, but I don't stay up at night worrying about it.
I find myself becoming more and more of a centrist with things. I just do what makes sense, and this whole where everything is now, they're just trying to do this divide.
Yeah,
and I don't care about that. I mean, I don't care what your beliefs are. Yeah, if you're a good person, I want to hang out with you and I like you, then great. But I don't want to. It's not like I'm against you, you're against me.
Yeah.
No.
But what did happen, though?
We're all Americans. Yeah?
What did happen is a lot of that knowledge stuck, and I do believe in some of that stuff. And so now I'm completely away from it. I don't even watch news anymore. My wife has to tell me things that goes on. I am all heating and air. I'm all rugby. I'm all Beer Can Co podcast. That's where I live right now. And church and family. Those are my 5 things, right?
Church, family, HVAC, and Bigfoot. I like it.
There you go. So and so for me, but what it did though is my kids show up and go, Dad, look at this cool thing, and I see a symbol or I see something, and I go, oh, like I recognize things and things I've learned and things I've known, cults, things like that. Because I don't know if you know this or not, but and I'm not going down this rabbit hole, but I'll just make this comment quickly. In South Africa, Satanism is actually illegal. Like here you have freedom of religion. You don't have it in South Africa. And so we were from a young age taught, my dad did some stuff for the military because he was in the military and then later on, but you were taught to recognize a lot of things and symbols as to silent things to kind of get kids involved and whatever. So what it did though is that year and a half that I was so deep into it, I learned a lot of things that true, maybe not true, but things that made me curious and things that just go, I recognize something and go, oh, I know what that is. And so I'm not going to partake or I'm not going to do that or I'm not going to support that. So there is some of that out there. And I have a good friend at work that we talk about this stuff a lot. But I don't even go, Telegram was the big one, right? So I'm not on Telegram anymore. I don't do any of the stuff anymore, but the fun stuff, the Bigfoot, the Ruleroo, that to me is fun. I get involved.
What? The Ruleroo? What's that?
Yeah. Oh, Steve.
Hold on, buddy. I'm getting hungry, Will. We got to go to dinner. I don't.
So there is.
I'm right there.
Give me the high level.
There's a swamp creature in Louisiana called the Ruleroo, and he's half man, half gator. You should.
I gotta look that shit up. All right.
You gotta look that one up.
How do you spell that?
No clue. With an R.
All right. I'll voice text it with Southern English.
So, and anyway, guys, this was an amazingly fun podcast. I knew it would be since the minute you told me about it, Will. So, Steve, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Yeah.
This was a fun one. We would love to have you back at some point when we don't have to first start with a 454 shortage. So, but I do know that, and maybe this is the podcast name, 454 is elusive as Bigfoot. I don't know, maybe.
I like it. There you go. That's
maybe we go down the whole marketing campaign, right? And he's hiding behind a tree, and you got to find.
That's right. So
you go from finding Bigfoot to finding 454. You got Bobo out there looking for him behind a tree.
Bobo was my favorite. I'm not gonna lie. So, but Steve, thank you so much for coming on. Will, buddy, you guys enjoy the beach, man. That's awesome. And then we'll be back next Wednesday with another fun pack. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, supposed to say Thursday because we record on Wednesday and then we technically go live on Thursday. So we'll be back next Thursday. Next Thursday with an action-packed episode. So, thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.
All right, brother. Enjoyed it.
That's awesome.
Steve, thanks for being on.